Are we ready? Or we're still in a practice session? Okay. All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the Santa Cruz Library Facility Financing Authority meeting to order. And we'll start with a roll call.
Director Goldstein,
Here.
Director Hoffaker,
Here.
Director Palacios,
Here.
Chair Lago.
Here. Thank you. Are there any additional materials for our meeting today?
No, there are none.
Great, thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Any from staff? From the board?
No, there are not.
All right, so let's move on to oral communications. Any member of the audience may address the board on any matter either on or off the agenda that is within the board's jurisdiction. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board this morning?
Chair Legault, it does appear as though there is a hand up from the audience. Joe, go ahead.
I think you're muted, Joe, but if you unmute, you should be ready. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and board members. My name is Joseph Kuchera. I was a former member of your board representing the County of Supervisors as the 5th District Supervisor. I want to thank you for your public service and the opportunity to address you today. I hope you are in receipt of the email correspondence that I transmitted to each of you yesterday. I am here representing the Julie Mackey family and the local community who has expressed considerable concern about the unexpected and precipitous removal of the Julie Mackey Ceramic Art Series at the Boulder Creek Library. I'm here to implore you to take action to reinstall the artwork series at the Boulder Creek Library immediately. The artwork was part of the community design process in 1984 that led to the creation of the Boulder Creek Library. And one of the top design criteria was the permanent installation of local community artist work in the library building. Your prior director approved and authorized a $3,000 expenditure to frame and reinstall the artwork in the Boulder Creek Library, which was done on February 24th, 2022. It was only last week that I received a call from Miss Wilburn saying that she was going to remove the artwork due to supposed anonymous comment of library staff as a result of cultural appropriation, racial stereotype, and that the masks were offensive. Julie Mackey spent several months in downtown Boulder Creek sketching local community patrons and residents in the downtown area and nearby vicinity of the library. Her intent was to ensure a diverse representation of the community. You've received the photos of the 6 masks, and you can see how diverse they are. I was informed in a second call from Ms. Wilburn this Monday at 8:50 a.m. that the mask had already been removed, and if I did not pick them up, they would be mailed to me.
And
I am
Joe, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Joe. And is there any other member of the audience who would like to address the board?
Chair Legault, there is NBBM. You're unmuted. You may need to unmute yourself. Your 3 minutes will start when you begin speaking.
I clicked on unmute. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. My name is Nancy Macy. I am a longtime activist in the community. I live in Boulder Creek. I know Joe Kuchera and Julie Mackey well, and I have been involved in this since I first heard about it. I did have a very informative and interesting and conversation with the director and have great respect for her. I know where she's from. I know about that county, and I hold her in a high esteem. I do feel, however, that the removal was precipitous, that there was already approval by the previous director for it to be reinstalled. And there was a sense of pride and honor throughout that whole process. Laura Whaley, the facilities director, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of the gentleman from the county, helped find the spot where it would be in the adult reading room and went through that whole process. The county agreed to pay for the restoration, which was done by local people, Steve Langtot and his wife, Mary, who are extremely talented. The whole thing was done as a labor of love and great excitement. We all supported the renovation of the library. It's just really, really sad that this situation has come about so quickly with no chance for going through a more comfortable, open, public process. And I would urge you to replace the artwork as was given in promise, basically by the previous director and by those who were involved in it up to that point. And then perhaps go through an additional process to see if it would need to be removed. I do understand the legal ramifications. I do understand what the current laws are, but this was done a long time ago with a lot of feeling, and I hope the board will consider that factor. And again, I do thank you for the opportunity to talk and express my concern for how badly this was handled. I think precipitous is an appropriate word. Nonetheless, I do hold respect for your new director and hope that this can be handled with greater, what's the word, sympathy for the artist and her effort and the idea of responding to the art without understanding where it came from and what it was about. And
all right, thank you, Nancy. Your 3 minutes are up.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Nancy. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the board this morning?
Chair Legault, Sheila is also requesting opportunity to speak. Sheila, your 3 minutes will begin as soon as you unmute. You may need to unmute yourself, Sheila. Sheila, you look unmuted on my side, but we can't hear you. Do you have an inline mute? Sheila, we seem to be having some trouble. We can't hear you. You do appear unmuted, but perhaps your mic isn't picking it up. Chair Legault, how would you like to proceed?
Well, Sheila, since we can't hear you, let's see if there's anyone else, or maybe Sheila, if you could put your comment in the Q&A, that maybe we could get it that way. But we aren't able to hear you.
Are there any other public comments? Well, Chair Legault, I do not see any further public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Thank you for those comments. We'll move forward to our library director report.
Thank you, Chair Legault. This morning, my report is included in your packet for your review. We have a few updates that are noted with regard to our facilities and the renovation and reconstruction. I am pleased to let everyone know that our Aptos library has received the permits needed to begin the demolition. So that should begin shortly. And I would like to also invite everyone, excuse me, to the grand opening of the Boulder Creek Library that will be taking place this Saturday, May 7th from 12 to 4 p.m. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board for Director Wilburn? Seeing none, are there any public comments on the director's report?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
All right, thank you. So go ahead and accept that report. I don't think we need a vote on that. So we will move on to the consent calendar. And I would entertain a motion to approve well, first, let's see if there's any requests to remove an item for the consent calendar. So anything from a board member, request to remove an item from consent? Thank you, Director Goldstein. No shaking heads. Looks like we're okay. All right, any requests from the public to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Chair Legault, there are no requests from the public.
All right, in that case, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Chair, I would move approval.
Thank you, Director Huffaker.
Second.
Second, Goldstein, and a roll call vote, please.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Huffaker,
Aye.
Director Palacios. Director, okay, thank you. Chair Legault.
Yes. All right, motion carries, and let's move on to our general business. So our first item is the Library Facility Financing Authority proposed budget for 22-23.
Good morning, Edith Driscoll, your LFFA Treasurer and Controller. As we do every year, we're bringing you the proposed budget, and then it is our intent to come back at the next meeting with your final budget. As mentioned in the letter here, we are asking that you accept the proposed 22-23 Libraries Facility Financing Authority budgets, including the general fund proposed budget and the debt service fund proposed budget, and recommend placing them on the agenda for your next meeting. Going back to, of course, the purpose why we're all here is to build libraries, and to do that we need to finance the libraries. And so the attached budgets reflect the sources coming in, and the sources being the Measure S special tax revenue, and then the disbursement of that money. And those monies are dispersed. The first call is always to pay debt service, and then any residual, any leftover funds are distributed. I'm sorry, I have a bug here. Are distributed to entities that have not received their maximum amounts yet. The documents are here for your review, and I'm available for any questions. I do want to clarify that this does not include the yet to be defined or issued third bond. This is only the bonds that your board has currently authorized, and the taxes that we are using to pay to service those debts. It does not, at the point that your board determines when they're ready to do the third bond, we would, if that happens to be during the middle of this year, we would come back with a budget adjustment to alter that. Thank you. Any questions? I'm available.
Thank you. Does the Board have any questions regarding this budget? All right, let's see if there's any public comment regarding this budget.
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
All right, well, in that case, I would look for a motion.
No, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I do have a question.
Great.
I know I've asked you this before, Edith, but do you see a time when we can start doing these meetings less frequently? It seems like with the LFA, the last policy decision is when we do the debt for Santa Cruz, and until then, it's more procedural. Do you think we can go down to a meeting a year?
It's your board's decision. I will continue to prepare finance documents as your board requests. And it's just, however, I would summarize that. I continue to summarize that by saying it's the fiduciary duty of your board to oversee this money. And at whatever point your board chooses to have less meetings, that's your board's decision.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments? Then I would look for a motion to accept the proposed 22-23 library facility financing authority budget, including the general fund and the debt service proposed budgets, and recommend placing them for approval for the final budgets on the July 2022 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hafiker,
Yes.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries, and we'll move on to our second item of general business, which is the Community Facilities District number 2016-1. And looks like we're going to have a brief presentation on that.
So again, Edith Driscoll, your treasurer controller, and every quarter, as part of my fiduciary duty, I provide you with quarterly updates. You also, at the end of the year, of course, have a financial audit that you have performed, but it has been at the request of your board, and I think it's a strong fiduciary responsibility to quarterly see how our funds are being spent. And so this document reflects that and is the same format that you have seen every quarter for the last number of years. Any questions? I'm available.
Are there any questions from board members regarding the financial statements? Are there any public comment on this item?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
All right, well, if there's no further discussion, I would look for a motion to accept and file the financial statements for this quarter.
So moved.
Second.
Great, thank you. Moved by Palacios, second by Huffaker, and we'd have a roll call vote, please.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hafiker,
Aye.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. The motion carries, and that brings us to project updates and comments by board members. Are there any board members who would like to update us on what's been happening or have comments? All good. All right, then moving on, our next meeting will be June 2nd, where we will adopt that final budget. And it looks like we're planning to be back on Zoom again for that next meeting.
Excuse me, Chair Legault. I do want to point out that this was the standard of how the meetings typically fall for our next library Joint Powers Authority Board meeting. I want to recognize that the comments by Board Member Goldstein, that the board can make the decision. In Edith's report, she mentioned that the final approval would be July. So I just want to point out, you may want to adjust that date to July. I just wanted to bring that to your attention for the board to consider.
Thank you, Director Wilburn. Yeah, Ms. Driscoll, you have a comment on that?
We seem to have thought the next meeting wasn't until July here on my staff's calendar. So it's really an administrative error. So we'd be happy to come back on June 2nd.
But it sounds like July is when we would be ready to adopt the budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
My staff would be ready to provide you with the final budget on June 2nd, rather than waiting until July. I guess I need clarification of our posted schedule. Was June the posted schedule date? It was, then it was just an administrative error on my staff's part. We'll be happy to come back in June with your final budget.
Great, thank you. Well, let's do that. And then we can talk about the schedule for next year and what makes sense as far as meeting frequency and the budget process and how we can most efficiently move that forward. All right, with that, we will adjourn the Facility Financing Authority meeting and reconvene as the Library Joint Powers Authority. And for this second meeting, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Goldstein? Director Goldstein?
Aye. Sorry, I thought I had muted earlier.
Thank you. Director Hoffaker?
Yes.
Director Palacios?
Here.
Chair Legault?
I'm here as well. Thank you. So are there any additional materials submitted after the distribution of this agenda packet?
There are none.
Great, thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none. Let's move forward to oral communications. So again, this is the time of the meeting that any member of the audience may address the board on any matter either on or off the agenda that's within the board's jurisdiction. Are there any members of the audience who would like to address the board under general public comment?
Chair Legault, I do not see any hands up. Oh, I do. Joe, sir, your hand is up. You do have 3 minutes once you unmute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Should the comments be made during this part of your meeting that I made during the prior meeting?
You could add to your comments if you would like to. This is technically a separate meeting, so if you would like to share your comments with this governing body, you are welcome to do so.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to implore you to please reinstate the Julie Mackey Ceramic Art Series at the Boulder Creek Library immediately. They have been a permanent part of the library's collection since the library first opened in 1985. They were removed for the renovation, which commenced in 2020, and they were approved by the prior library director, Ms. Nemitz, to be reinstalled together with the floor mosaic that had also been removed and was directed by Ms. Nemitz to the project manager, Mr. Damon Aladeo, to coordinate and contract for the framing and reinstallation of the ceramic series. A committee of the library convened by Mr. Eladio selected the location of the adult reading room within the library and directed, following that, directed art services by Steve Lancott and Felton to install the mask when they were completed. The masks were installed on February 24th of 2022. And Miss Wilburn was present that day and got a personal tour of each of the masks and was exuberant in her compliments of the quality and professionalism of the artwork, the framing, and what a great addition they were to the adult reading room. It was only on Monday of this week that she very curtly demanded they be picked up because she had already removed the masks, and if I did not pick them up, she was going to mail them. This
Sir,
is
your
an
3 minutes are
injustice.
up.
This is an injustice to the local community and your system. Thank you very much for your understanding and action.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any other members of the public wishing to comment this morning?
Chair Legault, I do not see any additional hands up from the audience, nor do I see public comment in the Q&A.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will move on to our next item, which is our report by Library Director Wilburn.
Thank you, Chair Legault. Again, my library director's report is included in your agenda packet for your review. Again, a reminder that our Boulder Creek Library is going to be having its grand opening on May 7th from 12 to 4. We'd like to invite everyone out for that grand opening. And then I would like to also add a save the date for June 11th for the reopening of our Garfield Park Library. And again, that will take place from 12 to 4. So go ahead and mark your calendars, and we'll be sending out additional information and posting that on our website as the final plans evolve for that grand opening. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board for Director Wilburn?
Chair, I have one quick question related to the Garfield Park planned reopening that we're all very excited about. Director Wilburn, can you speak a little bit to the planned improvements to the landscaping? I know there's been some interest from the community with that regard as we finish off the improvements at the Garfield branch. I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Our Garfield Park location right now, the contractors are finishing up the work that they need to do. Once they have cleared the area, we will be allowed to, they'll do some cleanup of the area because they've got different things that are out there. But then we do have our own landscaping vendor that comes out onto the property, and they are expected, once they get approval from the contractor to come on the work site, they will begin the cleanup and restoration. There is quite a few weeds that have grown, as you can imagine, over the last few years. And so those will be cleaned up, and the site should be restored so that it is very attractive for the grand opening. Thank you.
That's great to hear. Thanks for the update.
Any other questions from board members? Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the director's report?
Chair Legault, I do not see any public comments on the director's report.
All right, thank you. Well, we will then move on to our next item, which is the report by the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. So Bruce, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Legault, members of the board. I appreciate, as always, the opportunity to to chat with you. We are, as the director said, entering into an exciting few weeks with Boulder Creek opening. We will be hosting a donor event tomorrow evening at Boulder Creek. And then we will all be attending and working at the grand opening on Saturday. And I join her in inviting you all to come up and see that facility from noon to 4. I might just interject as I move into the conversation about briefly about Garfield Park, that I have been by Garfield Park a couple of times in the last week. Both times I was there were significant crews of landscapers. The weeds have almost all been cleared out of there. The plants look beautiful. The space looks much more attractive. Chips have been laid down around the entire facility. So certainly from the street view looking at the library, Matt, it's looking terrific. So really making progress there. We will also be hosting a donor event for the Garfield Park donors. We will do that on June 10th, and then we'll be attending the grand opening of Garfield Park with all of you on June 11th. You may recall that we raised funds for Boulder Creek primarily through the Monterey Peninsula Foundation matching grant program in 2019 and 20. And we raised funds for Garfield Park as part of that grant process, and also as part of last year's Realizing the Promise campaign. Right now, we are focused on doing everything we can to get the word out about, first of all, about the openings of these facilities and the ones that are coming right after them, and also to push the importance of the mixed-use facility to the library and to downtown as well. Its benefit to the community. This includes going to public meetings. We've been tabling at the downtown farmers market on Wednesday. We've been tabling at the West Side farmers market as well, and getting very positive reaction. We were at the recent Kids Day downtown as well. And we're all working in concert with other organizations who are in support of that project. I want to make sure we have a clear and consistent message going on, and that's really one of our efforts right now. We're also using our various social media platforms to get the word out. And then finally, I'd just like to briefly clarify something that I said at our last meeting. I was expecting at that time that we would be distributing the RTP funds in sort of large segments, 2 or 3 distributions across the year to the library. Since that time, however, the library and the city finance groups have gotten together and determined that it would be better, more appropriate to release smaller amounts as specific projects come up and are ready. So we have seen the first of those requests come in, and that is for grants of 40. Ultimately, it's the same amount of money, but it's just going to be in smaller amounts. I just wanted to clarify that and not leave a misapprehension on the record. Thank you for your time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Great, thank you, Bruce. Any questions from the board? All right, thank you for that comprehensive report. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, Bruce. It's great to see you again. And we will move on to our report by the Library Advisory Commission. And Lindsay, it's great to see you here.
Good morning, board members, and I'm happy to be back with you all after missing you a few meetings. I did want to provide a brief report out from the Library Advisory Commission's meeting on Monday, April 18th. Commissioners met via Zoom teleconference. We received an update from Sarah Harbison on the home connectivity kits, which is an exciting program, very aligned with the library's mission around equity and access. There were also significant questions for Sarah around a new program partnership with California State Parks and the California State Libraries, which makes available state park vehicle day use passes for checkout. So commissioners were very excited about the rollout of that program as well. So we continue to see great new leveraging by staff of grant programs and new programs for the community. The commissioners made two key motions in our April 18th meeting as part of our general business agenda. All our motions were unanimously approved. The first motion was to review and accept the following policies: the gift policy and gift agreement, the gift policy works of art, the meeting room policy and addendum, and the library naming policy. The updates provided in our packet sought to clarify the language that had caused some confusion in the past, or where more detail on responsibilities and expectations were needed to ensure that library could receive and utilize gifts for the greatest benefit to their overarching mission. One key benefit was having Bruce at that meeting, and as a key partner in gift giving, it was helpful to have him there and hear his full endorsement of the changes. And he also noted that the revised policies would lead to improved collaboration between library staff and FSCPL. As such, our motion was unanimous to approve all of those policies. We also accepted a policy renewal schedule from staff, which will be helpful in understanding what will be coming down the pike in subsequent meetings. The second motion was the approval of the display of the progressive pride flag at Santa Cruz Public Libraries through June 2022. And this effort was to bring a July 2021 decision to display the progressive pride flag into compliance with the commemorative flag policy, which was not finalized until August 2021. So commissioners supported the display of the flag through June 2022. There was also conversation and support amongst commissioners for continued staff efforts to make our community libraries safe, equitable, and welcoming spaces for all. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. Are there any questions from board members? All right, are there any comments from the public regarding Lindsay's report?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, Lindsay. I do see some of those same topics on our consent agenda, which is our next item for our meeting this morning. So thank you for being here and for reporting out. So next is the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion. Are there any requests from board members to remove an item from the consent calendar?
Chair Legault, I would like to pull, unfortunately, give me a second here. I'm sorry, I don't have very many hands to work with.
That's okay.
Right now.
Jamie, I unmuted you, so I'm watching you.
Oh, thank you. I don't have give me a second. I'm sorry, I should have been prepared. I'd like to pull item J off, item I and J.
Okay. Are there any other board member requested items to remove from the consent calendar? Are there any requests from the public to remove an item from the consent calendar?
Chair Legault, there are no requests from the public.
All right, well, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar minus item J.
Approval. And for clarity, it's I and J that we're not taking action on, correct?
I and J?
Correct.
Or just J?
I requested I and J to be pulled.
Oh, I and J. Thank you. I didn't hear I.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for approving the consent calendar minus items I and J, and ready for a roll call vote, please.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hoffaker,
Aye.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. Okay, so let's move forward to item I, the display of the progressive pride flag.
Thank you, Chair Legault. Item I is a recommendation to approve the display of the progressive pride flag at Santa Cruz Public Library facilities to commemorate Pride Month through June of 2022. The board had, the progressive pride flag was placed, it was raised at all of our facilities last year. In my reviewing of the policies, I noted that that particular policy that is posted had a 365-day term limit, which would have meant we need to take the flag down. But then we would want to put it back up during Pride Month in June. So rather than making those two adjustments, we believe it is more efficient to let that flag continue to fly through June of 2022, when we would take it down. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Director Goldstein, do you have questions?
I don't have questions exactly. I do have comments when we're ready to get to that.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay. Do you want to go to public comment first, or should we start right into?
Sure, if you would prefer.
I don't care. I can go into it. So here's my take on this is when we went to this board structure. First off, I want to say that I completely support flying the pride flag over the libraries. I think it's totally appropriate. This is not about this particular issue. It's more about kind of the context and what the structure that we've set up for this board. When we formed this board structure 5 or 6 years ago, I think one of the things that we all acknowledged was that there may be times when there are more political or cultural type issues, which the Board of Administrators isn't maybe the best place to hear the item, and that there may be items that we may need to refer up to our city councils or Board of Supervisors. My take is that flags are sort of deeply cultural, political, social things for people. And I don't know that this board is the best place to kind of be the final arbiter of those issues. So I'm tying it into the policy here because I think I'm thinking about these in sort of a single issue. My suggestion, what I would like to see happen, or at least like to see considered, is that each branch of our libraries follows the policy or protocols of the host jurisdiction. I just think that then puts the decision in the hands of local elected leaders about an issue like this, which feels to me maybe to be the right place. And so if the city of Santa Cruz chooses to fly the pride flag for 3 months a year, then the Santa Cruz branch libraries would emulate that. And in Capitola, we fly the pride flag in June. That's what we would do. And maybe another community doesn't do that. That would be the lead place that would make that decision. So that's where I'm coming from. And I guess my ask today would be to continue this in the next item and refer it to the LAC and staff for a bit of analysis and maybe a recommendation on the feasibility of that option. Thank you.
I guess if I could comment, I think that's definitely one potential option. After thinking this through, the other option is to have the LAC make these decisions, which is kind of embedded in our policy now, is to have the Library Advisory Commission. I know, these kind of issues don't come up very often, but when they do, they're highly charged and emotional, take a lot of time. And the board, I know the board members, and when I was on, city manager, city council members often struggle, don't also feel great having these put before them either. And so, I wonder if Library Advisory Commission is an option, because then you have a group of residents and they're making a recommendation to us. And I think normally we would just follow their recommendation. So I just think that's another option as well. Thought we had given direction last summer, maybe it was, or last fall, that we were going to basically limit it to a 30-day, to not a 365, to a 30-day display, similar to policies that now exist in our various cities. I believe, if I remember correct, Watsonville used to have a policy like that. I think maybe Capitola does as well. because then, once you get to a year, then it becomes harder, and other groups start getting anxious about one group getting 4 months, and then why did we only get 2 months? And there becomes a war over that. And so we had sort of talked about, I thought we had given direction to staff to change the policy to 30 days.
I'm happy to respond to that if you like, Chair Legault.
Yeah, I see that is one of the red lines that's in the policy before us today.
Correct. So in my research of the policy, it does appear that direction was given to staff to go back and sort of look at those other policies, as Director Palacios has said. And that is where we have included that policy in item J, with that adjustment being made to 31 days. Unfortunately, it does not look like it was done last year, which is why the flag is still flying currently. However, I did catch that, and we are prepared to make that adjustment now.
Director Goldstein.
So why don't I try making a motion and we see if we can resolve this. So I think what I would move is that number one, for this year, temporarily display the pride flag through June. But before we approve any changes to the policy itself, what I would request is that we refer this back to the LAC. They evaluate the proposal I made, which was that the library branches would follow the policy or protocol of the host jurisdiction. And in addition, evaluate the option that Carlos outlined, and then come back to us with the final policy, in the next couple months.
So let me see if there's any members of the public who'd like to comment on this before we move forward with the motion.
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just a quick question. So Director Goldstein suggested in the next couple of months, I would presume that's the next possible board meeting.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I don't think it's that urgent. I think maybe if we could just say, we come back by November, by the end of the year. So we're not, I don't want to be pushed up against next June. That's all. That's my only intent there.
Okay. Just want to clarify. Thanks.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we're ready for a roll call vote.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hoffaker,
Yes.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. So we will look for that to come back on a future agenda item. And thank you, Director Goldstein, for raising that important discussion. Let's move on to item J, library policies and policy schedule review.
Thank you, Chair Legault. This is a recommendation to accept and file the policies that you see listed there: policy 109, 309, 310, 315, 315 addendum, and 403. In addition, we've included the policy renewal schedule, which is one thing that we had been asked at the Library Advisory Commission to include in this item. So that is attached for your review. In light of Director Goldstein's request on policy 109, the commemorative flag policy, we're happy to pull that item out of this and then take that back to the LAC. We do have an LAC meeting coming up, I believe, May 16th. And I don't see any reason why we could not get that back to the LAC. They've already seen this policy, but we'll be taking it back to them. We can easily make the adjustments, take it back to them and have that discussion on their agenda, so that then hopefully by the June meeting, we could bring it back to this board.
Yeah, Director Goldstein, did you have other policies you had questions about?
No, I was prepared to make a motion, but then I realized we don't have public comment yet.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board before I ask for public comment? All right, is there anyone in our audience today who has a comment regarding these policies?
Chair Legault, there are no comments on either of these policies.
All right, well, I'll close public comment and ready for a motion to approve all policies except the commemorative flag policy.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Goldstein, second, I think by Palacios. So we're ready for a roll call vote, please.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hoffaker,
Aye.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to our general business on the agenda today. So our first item is the fiscal year 22-23 draft operating budget proposal.
Thank you, Chair Legault. We have included the draft proposed budget, and I believe we have Kira on the line here. I'm happy to take any questions that you have with regard to this item. One thing that I do want to point out, because we did present the proposed sort of our budget assumptions at your last meeting. We did make a change that we added an increase in our training budget to ensure that we were supporting staff development. And so that is a change that we made from the previous assumptions that you were aware of at the last meeting. At this time, we're asking that you accept the proposed fiscal year 22-23 budget, and we recommend placing it on the June 2022 meeting for final approval. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from our board members regarding the proposed budget?
I do have a couple of questions. The first one is, I don't see in the budget overall the fund balance that we're carrying. I did notice that in the text there was a mention of 5.9 million. It says as of December 30th. I'm not clear whether that's the projected fund balance after this year or before this year. I don't know how we could have a fund balance in the middle of the year. So that's my first question about the fund balance. And then second question is that on page 12 where it says 22 adopted budget, is that the adopted amended budget, or is that the budget as, because I remember we made a few adjustments during the course of this year. That's another question. I'll stop asking questions and let staff respond.
Great.
Sure. Kira, can you go ahead and note that? Answer those questions?
Yes, to Jamie's question about the 2022 adopted budget on page 12. Jamie, is that correct? That is just the adopted budget. That does not take into consideration the amendments that were made throughout the year.
So with the amendments then, so it'd be helpful to see that, because what I see here is the adopted budget, we had 1.27 in books and materials and then 1.6 in expenditures. My recollection was that we authorized a mid-year budget adjustment, and that's what's going on there, but it's hard to see that. And then again, on these services, supplies, and other charges, it looks like we blew the budget by more than $1 million, which I don't think happened. If so, I think we need a little bit more detail about what happened there. So that would be helpful for me.
Okay, we can make those changes.
And then the second question was about the fund balance. Usually we see that, I think, as a kind of a column, sort of a running total of where we're sitting with fund balance. And I saw it, like I said, in the text, and it mentions the December 30th date. So it'd be helpful to understand where we're computing that balance as of what fiscal year.
Yes, so that the City of Santa Cruz prepares a financial report for us that shows our reserve amount and our fund balance amount. And the latest one we have is December of 2021. And I believe that was in the budget, or I'm sorry, the Joint Powers Board packet in March, I want to say. So I think that was a part of the budget passed. We haven't made it a part here. We were hoping to have an update from the City of Santa Cruz for the March quarter. So we can include that. I'm hoping we can include that as part of the final budget. But I do take note, I do believe we should add that, yes.
Okay, and just to be clear, I mean, fund balance is where we sit in between fiscal years, basically the unspent funds from the prior year, what's carrying over. So it really, it doesn't totally make sense to talk about it in the middle of the year. We have maybe a projection of where we're going to end the year, but talking about the fund balance as of March 30th, we could say that's the projection as of March 30th of where we end the fiscal year. But just to make sure we're doing the same thing, we're not just looking at cash in the bank, because cash in the bank, that's obviously highly variable throughout the year, just simply due to the cycle of the public sector and tax receipts and everything else.
Yeah, so what we could do is use the fund balance as of June 30th, 2021, and show that as the available fund balance. And then we can show the projected fund balance as of March 31st, so that the board gets a sense of where it's headed, if that makes it more comfortable or helpful to you when you're reviewing this.
Yeah, so usually we would see where we actually ended our fund balance situation in 2021. And then what you do is carrying over using our estimated actuals for this fiscal year, it would show where we would think we're going to end this fiscal year. And then based on the requested budget, where we would end next fiscal year, if that makes sense. I'm happy to go over this offline if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Jamie.
I don't think I have other questions at this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I had a question along the same line with so my understanding is that we're trying to use fund balance of, I guess it'll be $1.7 million of fund balance to help to balance the budget. And want to make just clear along the same lines with Jamie. I know there's a chart at the end of the budget that shows fund balance and reserves, and it shows a fund balance of $6 million and reserves of about $3 million. And that's at the very end of the materials that were provided. There was a chart. I'm just trying to guess based on the chart what it said. So this is not reserves. I'm just wanting to make clear, we're not projecting to use reserves. We're just using available fund balance to help balance the budget. And so then if that is, I think if that's correct, then it is crucial to have the projection that Jamie was talking about what is the projected fund balance at the end of this fiscal year, given that we're going to use 1.7 million to balance the budget. And I understand that, we all use fund balance as part of our next year's budget, but I just want to make sure we have the most current projected balances available. And to clarify, that's not reserves, that is fund balance that we're talking about.
Correct. This is on top of the reserve. So the 5 million that you see there is on top of the 20%.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members before I open public comment? All right. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment about this item?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
All right. Well, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for any final discussion or a motion to accept the proposed budget and bring that back in June for final adoption.
Just one more question before we move to the motion is in the text, it does say that that FY23 budget plans to use approximately $900,000 of fund balance. So in the text it says that, but in the chart, it shows 1.7 million of fund balance being used. So I was just wanting to clarify that.
I think the 1.7 was from this year's adopted. And then this year's estimate is now 1.2 of fund balance, and the requested for 23 is just over 850. Is that correct, Director Wilburn?
I believe that is correct.
Okay. Got it. So the 900K, when in the text when it says 900,000, it's referring to the 850 and just rounding. Okay, got it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I would move staff's recommendation on the budget, placing the approval of the final budgets on the June 2022 JPA agenda.
Second.
Point of clarification, would that also include more clearly illustrating the reserves and fund balance, both actual and projected, going forward as well?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Yes.
All right, thank you. If there's no other discussion, I think we're ready for a roll call vote.
Director Goldstein,
Aye.
Director Hoffaker,
Yes.
Director Palacios,
Yes.
Chair Legault.
Yes. Okay, item B under general business is a presentation on the connectivity kits by Sarah Harbinson.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I'm here to tell you a little bit more about the home connectivity kits that we're just introducing. I am going to share my screen. I have some slides to share with you this morning. Okay, so the purpose of the home connectivity kits is to assist Californians in overcoming hardships that were caused by the pandemic and to help people throughout the state access the internet in the fashion that is responsive to their needs. So one of the fundamental aims of this program was to provide tools such as devices, connections, and skill lifts to enable Californians to engage with the information, opportunities, and culture that is the internet. The items that we were able to purchase, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a moment, were purchased with funds made available through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, and shipped directly to us here at SCPL. Our allocation here was $27,500. And while all public California libraries who met the plan requirements were eligible for funding, demographics such as lower broadband access, lower incomes, and higher unemployment rates in the service areas were weighted to determine funding availability for public libraries. So the $27,500 is our allocation. So with that, we were able to get 33 Chromebooks with cases and headsets and mice to check out to the public. A little historical information. In January 2021, before our branches were open to the public again, we introduced a lendable tech collection of Chromebooks, hotspots, Chromebooks and hotspots bundled together in a kit, and Amazon Fire tablets. Those were an immediate success and quickly developed waiting lists and continue to be very popular. So with some reallocation of our existing resources and support from the Friends, we were able to add 60 hotspots to circulate individually. And then with the funding from this project, 33 hotspots and Chromebook kits to add. These are all going to be in our catalog. They'll be requestable, renewable if no one is waiting, and they check out for 3 weeks. The Chromebooks will be managed through a Google admin console, and the hotspots will also be managed through an admin dashboard. So if one is lost or damaged, we'll be able to pause the data plan. So I know this is a little hard to read, but the first set of data on this graph shows the hotspots, and the first column is our current number of hotspots, and then the forthcoming is the darker blue. So it just shows the increase in the number of hotspots that we'll be able to provide. We're going to bundle all of our existing Chromebooks into kits with hotspots because we found that the demand really is for the hotspots themselves. And then we'll keep the number of Fire tablets at the same levels. We found that our numbers are currently sufficient. So I just wanted to give you a visual of what these home connectivity kits look like. This is the bag that the Chromebook and hotspot kits will circulate in. There are pockets for the headsets and for the mice. And these are the hotspots that will circulate individually. They're T-Mobile hotspots, and they come with a charger. And then they check out in a little plastic box to keep them safe and to keep them from getting lost in people's bags. So Greg Lucas, our California State Librarian, says libraries are centers for digital access in their communities. And that was what he says about this project. And as an added bonus this morning, I wanted to give you a peek at our other new program, the California State Parks Passes. And this is a program that the State Library has worked very hard with the California State Parks, and they've provided to public libraries a hang tag that provides vehicle day use entry into state parks. And it's a 3-year pilot program starting in April. So we've already rolled out our first batch of these parks passes. We have 11 of them currently, and we will be getting an additional 27 sometime later this month. And they have been an immediate hit as well. We already have a fairly lengthy waiting list for the 11 that we have. And this is what they look like. We've put them in a zippered mesh bag to keep them safe. And there are some guidelines on the back of the pass, as well as a website that shows ineligible state parks. And they've also got a QR code on there so that our patrons can take a survey about their experience using the state parks with this pass. Again, we've got a portal where if a pass is reported lost or stolen, we can go in and have it deactivated or invalidated and request a replacement. And I'm happy to answer any questions about either of these programs.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from our board members? Or comments?
No questions, just to comment. It's just really, really wonderful work. I really appreciate these new initiatives and how well they've been done. And so just know our appreciation and our thanks to you and other staff who worked on it.
If I could second those comments, Chair, we all know how much our communities rely upon our physical branches to access the internet. If we don't have stable connections at home, and I think taking it up to the next level to really reach out to those that are struggling to have stable internet access. You know, we all know how the pandemic has underscored the disparities and the importance of having stable access. And really appreciate the work of the staff. And as a lover of our state parks, really love the idea of being able to double up on our library card and providing park access to the community that we serve. So thank you so much for staff's work. Both exciting programs.
I'm really intrigued by the library card for the state parks. I didn't hear it during the presentation. Do libraries have to sort of buy these passes from state parks, or are the state parks just a partner in this and giving us these transferable passes?
We did not pay for these. These were provided to us by the California State Library with funding that they had secured. And all public libraries in California are eligible to receive these passes.
That's really great. Thank you.
And I would just add also that these passes are going to be made available in Spanish. So the state library, these are the first ones that are coming out, but they are working on Spanish language and other language versions of the passes for checkout.
And I forgot to mention in my presentation, we have step-by-step instructions for the hotspots in both English and Spanish.
That's great. Yeah, I am so impressed with both of these programs, and it's an area where I think the pandemic showed us how important both of these are, both internet connectivity and also access to our open spaces and our state parks are such a huge asset, and making them available to our community members through a library card is a very innovative and just a wonderful asset for our community. So thank you for implementing these programs and just continuing to innovate the way that our libraries serve our communities. So are there any public members who would like to comment on this presentation?
Chair Legault, there are no public comments.
Okay, so if there are no public comments, it doesn't look like we need to have a formal vote on this. We're just receiving this presentation. So unless I'm wrong about that, I think we're ready to move on to comments by board members. Thank you so much, Sarah. Do our board members have any comments?
So I just have one quick apologize. I need to apologize to everybody during the meeting. My arm sling here is apparently interacting with my leather chair, has been making a lot of noise during the meeting. I apologize. Next time, maybe I'll try to put a piece of paper between the sling itself and the leather chair to avoid that noise.
No problem. Any other comments by board members? I would just like to acknowledge that there was a comment that was submitted through the Q&A after public comment was closed today. So we are checking as far as whether we can include that somehow in the record of this meeting, or if that commenter, we would welcome you to write in through the channels that are available, and we can make sure your comments are included in the future. So I just wanted to acknowledge that comment came in. So our next scheduled meeting will be on June 2nd on Zoom. And unless there's anything I missed, I think we are ready to adjourn the JPA meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, adjourn. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, Jamie.